Today, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to help you decide whether Foxhole is the right massively multiplayer strategic war game for you. By the end of this video, you will know what it's like to actually play this game to help you make an informed decision. I'm not a Foxhole fanboy, just a strategy fan who took a chance on this game so I could report back with my findings to you, my fellow generals. First, give me 60 seconds to describe the game in a nutshell. If you're still intrigued after that, we'll go into more detail about how the game plays, the mechanics, and how it compares to other games you may have played. Foxhole is a persistent war, 24/7, in the style of World War II-ish, with two fictional, almost identical teams, the Blue Wardens and Green Baby-Eating Colonials, fighting for territory on a single map. That's right, hundreds if not thousands of players on the same map. When one team gains enough territory by grinding forwards to destroy and rebuild key buildings, they win the war, and after a bit of casual downtime, a new one starts. A full war can last a few days or up to a month, but 15 days is a rough average. There are many vehicles and fixed gun emplacements if tanks and big guns are your thing. If you like building, you could construct a fortress with both AI and player-controlled defenses. Or if logistics is more your thing, there's a RuneScape-style resource gathering and crafting system to create the weapons of war, and a constant stream of players ferrying them to the front lines. The mechanics of which are so in-depth, you could spend your entire Foxhole career purely running logistics, or be a behind enemy lines partisan trying to disrupt the enemy's logistical operations. The game was first released in July 2017, with many very positive reviews. It's still in early access, receiving regular updates with new weapons and quality of life improvements, though certain areas of the game are overdue some care and attention. The Canadian-based developers Siege Camp haven't really got a track record of similar games for us to analyse, though, to be fair, there aren't many games similar to Foxhole, full stop. But have they brought the game to a point where it is deserving of your attention, and is it worth the price they're charging? Before we dive into the detailed mechanics, let's pretend you've just purchased the game and fired it up. Let's see what the game looks like when you first log in. As you can see, the art style is a little basic, but we don't mind that. There's a friendly message to greet us before we hit the main menu. We have a news and highlights section, which is pretty useful actually. Then your standard social media links in the bottom left, a way of changing servers, but you don't need to worry about that. We then have the standard options that you would expect, such as graphics. Oh, no, we don't want to reset the key bindings. Then you hit play, and we see a brief summary about ourselves and the war that's currently happening, many deaths, and we click deploy to actually enter the game, deploying at our home island where you can either check out the tutorials or deploy onto the battlefield proper. When you look at screenshots or videos, the graphics look overly basic, but when you actually play the game, it looks surprisingly pretty while balancing this with overall basic graphics, making the game accessible to potato PCs and enabling huge battles with smooth frames and connection speeds. With first impressions out of the way, you're most likely going to look for the tutorial, which is split into different sections. The basic training can be completed in a few minutes and leaves you able to deploy and get into the fight quickly. There will be mechanics both small and large that you won't understand, but crucially, this doesn't stop you getting into your first battle and having a blast. When you're ready to take on something new, such as logistics, you can go back to the relevant tutorial at any time and discover the joys of that particular part of the game. The point is, you don't need to understand all parts of the game to enjoy it. Quite the opposite. It's departmentalized, so you can learn each part of the game piece by piece, as and when you're ready. It's a minimalistic yet very effective setup, but even so, be prepared to Google or YouTube plenty, as there are enough mechanics in this game to make even a 4X gamer sweat. Now we've looked at the higher level gameplay, let's dive into the details so you know what it's like to actually play the game and what you'll spend most of your time doing. Let's start with the frontline combat, which is where you'll spend your first few hours. The top-down view takes a bit of getting used to, but works well. You use WASD to move your little fella around and push the mouse cursor to the edges of the screen to expand your view in that direction. You can also hold the mouse wheel down to rotate your view, so we have a very flexible set of controls here, and although it may look it at first, Foxhole is most definitely not an RTS. Using Tab to access your inventory, you can equip a variety of equipment such as gas masks to protect you from gas grenades, and a bazillion different weapons. Then you aim by holding the right mouse button and fire with the left. Generally speaking, it takes a couple of rifle shots to take someone down, and when killed, you can respawn at the nearest base and rejoin the fight pretty quickly. When you die, you drop your gear on the floor, so scavenging is an important part of the game. It would be a waste to take lots of expensive equipment into battle to get immediately shot and leave it for the enemy to steal. More often than not, you can leave your base with no weapon and pick up plenty off the floor from the front line, and it's satisfying to steal important equipment from the enemy team, such as a heavy machine gun or a mortar when you can. Communication with teammates over a mic is essential. Similar to Hell Let Loose, you'll find yourself talking to many different people, and it's a very mature atmosphere in this game. Well, mature might not be the right word, but it's friendly. The terrain itself is varied with hills and cliffs giving you an accuracy bonus while shooting, and a weather system that threatens to freeze you to death if you're out in the cold for too long. There are even amphibious assaults with ships that act as spawn points and storage centers, offering an Omaha beach experience and huge coastal guns. The scope of the game is so mind-boggling that if you can think of a mechanic, the chances are it's included somehow, from having to refuel vehicles to carrying wounded soldiers back from the front line to be revived by a medic. So let's summarize the typical frontline combat experience. You'll spawn at a base on the front line. Each time you'll take a rifle and maybe 2 magazines of the correct ammo from the inventory of that particular base. We'll discuss how that equipment gets there in a moment. You'll head out to the fight, which might be right outside your bunker, but hopefully a bit further towards the enemy's bunker. As the map is so big and the battles are so fluid, it may take you a couple of spawns to find your footing and become an effective part of the big push towards the enemy's closest spawn so you can blow it up. You might be grinding for 30 minutes, exchanging rifle fire between trenches or charging into an enemy trench for Callahan with a bayonet, but a well-placed grenade could be enough to instigate a full-scale assault on the enemy line, with 30 other guys leaving your friendly trenches and 4 tanks leading the charge while friendly and enemy artillery are called in by spotters trying to assist or stop the push. It's an exhilarating experience. There are a trillion different weapons of all shapes and sizes, which all require a specific type of ammunition, but each bullet, each grenade is player-made. So where do they come from? Let's move away from the front lines for the moment and examine the never-ending war machine constantly grinding away behind them.
Charge! Glory to Callahan! Glory to Callahan!
There are certain areas of the map where you can grab a sledgehammer or some other tools and harvest the most common resource, simply called salvage. Once you've collected some, you can transport it to a refinery using a truck that you either found or created yourself to refine the scrap into basic materials, which can be used for all manner of things, including creating a ton of basic weapons and ammunition or repairing vehicles and buildings. There are in fact many other materials, but suffice to say the longer it takes to extract, refine and combine the necessary materials, the better the weapon you get at the end of the process. You get the idea. We have some serious RuneScape vibes here. So once you've got a bunch of weapons and perhaps some shirts, by the way are what you use each time you spawn. I don't know why they use shirts, but if a bunker doesn't have a supply of shirts, you can't spawn there, so they're pretty damn important. Anyway, you need to get all of this lot to the front line. And the map is big, it's really big, so that's not always easy, and you may run into some partisans attempting to ambush you along the way. Now there are plenty of strategies here, most of which I don't know, so let's just say getting the materials to the front line isn't always straightforward, but there are built-in chat and map features for players to tell each other what is needed and where. Then once you're there, you dump the supplies at one of many bases requiring constant resupply. Everybody will love you and potentially commend you, which is how the progression system works in the game. You can commend a certain number of players each day. After you get enough commendations, you go up a level and a rank. It doesn't do anything other than show other people which rank you are, which is kind of cool, but doesn't affect gameplay. Logistics is an essential part of the game, and there are droves of players who 100% only focus on logistics, so I can't stress how integral it is. And if you're thinking that sounds boring, you don't have to do it, but give it a try, as you may be surprised at how much fun it is. A quick note on research. As each war progresses, so too does the technology for both sides. You don't really notice it other than all of a sudden a new type of weapon or vehicle becomes available to construct. But there is a detailed tech tree constantly progressing in the background as players produce prototypes of weapons and vehicles to unlock bigger and more destructive weapons that wreak havoc on the battlefield. You could ignore research completely, or dedicate your life to progressing research for your team, or do something in between the two. This is a common theme throughout Foxhole, with a diverse set of roles offering something for everyone, with enough depth in each role that you could happily play it all of the time, or you can take on a mixture of several roles, broadening its appeal and increasing longevity by offering a variety of gameplay experiences that all contribute to the war effort. Building is another huge part of the game that, again, you could spend 100% of your Foxhole career doing if you wanted to. There's that much depth to it. If somebody is in a trench, they're much harder to shoot at compared to just standing there like a lemon. So in its most basic form, digging a network of trenches, which you can do pretty much anywhere, is very useful for your team. But it goes so much further than that. There's a detailed list of upgradable buildings, bunkers, and trenches that become increasingly powerful. With enough time and manpower, you could end up with a large fortress with several upgraded bunkers connected by trenches with firing ports and AI-controlled defenses that can cause a genuine problem for the opposing team. It would take a bloody long time to do it on your own and cost a huge amount in materials, but you will see teams of builders working together, sometimes under heavy fire, to construct both defensive and offensive buildings, and you will be very thankful for them. All of the above can be achieved on your own. If you want Foxhole to be a solitary experience, technically you can, but everything can be achieved far easier and more quickly as part of a team working together. If you have a friend you can take with you, then great. But if not, it's incredibly easy to find a regiment on Discord and simply roll with them. You don't even need to be a particularly active member of the group. As there are so many of you, you can just turn up when it suits you and get stuck in. So if your schedule doesn't leave you much time to play games, you can still be part of an organized team to experience the game at its best. Although fighting, building, and logistics are all important parts of the game, you don't need to be an expert in each one to be an effective player. The way the game departmentalizes these various yet essential roles means the learning curve is relatively low for new players and doesn't feel like a smack in the face if you've not played for 6 months and want to get back into the game. But each time you learn a new role in the game, whether it be a medic, artillery, logistics, or one of a million other roles available to you, you're deepening your skill and experience as a whole. Here is something important I do want to highlight. The persistent nature of Foxhole means the game does not stop when you log off. This is one of the greatest appeals of the game, but also a potential weakness. You'll find yourself checking on the world map occasionally to see how the war is going while you're at work, whether the enemy has taken back the ground you took last night. You may start to even feel guilty for not playing as the enemy advances, and eventually guilt could turn into pressure to log on to help your team. The persistent war is a great feature, but those of you with an addictive personality should beware. You may reach a point where you just need to take a break from the game. So does this game have longevity? Hell yes, it does. Although it's just one game on one map, the huge variation in roles, the vastness of the map, and sheer unpredictability create a game that can be played for thousands of hours without getting bored for a minute. But now you know what you do in the game, how much is it going to cost you? The full price of the game is $30, £23.79 or €25, but when it's regularly on sale, this goes down to $22.50, £17.84 and €18.74. If you pay in euros, it looks like a particularly good deal. There are no DLCs for Foxhole at this moment in time, so it's a straight up choice of whether you want to pay this much for this game. So let's bring this all together by cross-referencing other games you may have played and answer the question, is this game right for you today? Foxhole isn't an RTS, but it feels like one. If you enjoy World War II based RTS games, there's a lot that you'll enjoy about the details in Foxhole. So Company of Heroes, Steel Division 2 and Gates of Hell Ostfront fans in particular should seriously consider this game. It isn't a first-person shooter, but so much of the game will remind you of Hell Let Loose. The big battles with infantry and vehicles, the organisation behind the front lines, and the communication are all so similar that, again, I would recommend this game to anyone who enjoys Hell Let Loose. The shooting part of the game is a bit weird at first, perhaps frustrating, but it honestly won't take you long to get the hang of it, as it really isn't difficult to pick up kills, but there is some nuance in certain situations. If you find the idea of using your mic intimidating, or simply prefer a solitary single-player experience, then you could still technically play Foxhole, but you wouldn't be getting the most out of it. If you like to run and gun, you'll mostly hate the game as it's far more tactful than that, and is all about teamwork rather than the individual's twitch reflex. It's also fair to say the atmosphere is somewhat mature in Foxhole, so if you're an older gamer, part of the gamer dad crew, or just want to get along with others, you'll fit right in, whereas if you just want smack talk and teabagging, I suggest you look elsewhere. So what do you do in Foxhole? Many things. You can be a frontline soldier with a rifle and grenade, a tank commander or gunner, a medic, a machine gunner, part of a 10-man artillery squad, a builder, researcher, mortar crew, resource gatherer, satchel charge placer and building blower-upper, and so much more. Each of these roles have depth. They take time to learn, but can be learnt at your own pace. And crucially, all are equally important to winning the war. The mechanics working in the background of Foxhole is where the beauty of the game lies. The visuals that sit on top of that are really just a delivery system for those mechanics. So don't judge the game purely on its visuals. Not that it's an ugly game, but you'd be missing the point. The beauty is in the interconnected systems that lie beneath, along with the teamwork and communication required to achieve success. I hope you found this video useful, and if you did, I have plenty more that analyse whether strategy or war games are right for you, so feel free to check those out too. See ya.